Are you looking to have better conversations with the people in your life? Go a little bit deeper, maybe get to know them a little better, maybe get to help them a little bit better? Well, this video will absolutely help you do that. Make this adjustment and bask in the magic that follows. Also, stick around because at the end of this video, I talk about how this advice can even help introverts. That's right, I got your back. Welcome to Better Echoes, improving ourselves so we can uplift all. You are awesome. Let's dive in. Alright, so I'm going to spoil the answer right up front in this video, but after that I'll give you some great examples of different conversation types where this idea can be super useful. And here it is. The way to have better conversations is to ask more questions. Ask the other person about themselves. Ask about the things that they're passionate about, or things they enjoy, or their problems, or their lives. Now, I don't mean pry. I mean measure the conversation and ask good questions that make the conversation deeper, more fun, more beneficial, or more meaningful for both people involved. Asking more questions can be great in so many different scenarios. So let me give you some examples of asking more questions in different types of conversations so you can see why it's so important and so helpful to do. So first up on the list of great times to ask more questions is when you're swapping stories with friends. Now, we all have this tendency to hear somebody else's story, and then that reminds us of a story that happened to us, and then we absolutely must take over the conversation right as they're done talking and tell our story without responding to what they just said. Now, hold on a second. Ask them a question about their story. They're clearly excited. Let them take the mic for a minute. Asking a question will give them some more speaking time, which they'll really appreciate. It will show that you were actually listening, and not that you were just listening until they shut up so you could tell your own story. When you ask a question, that shows that you were intrigued by their story, that you're really interested. Also, most importantly here, whatever story they're telling right now is a great way for you to understand more of what built them as a person. Here are some examples of questions you can ask when someone is telling a story. Then what happened? How did you feel about that? What was that like? Or anything pertinent to the story that they seem to be especially excited or passionate about. Pick a thread, one that seems really interesting to them, and follow that. Just start a line of questioning based on what seems to excite them most. Hit that like button if you've ever had somebody cut off your story to tell one of their own. It's happened to me plenty of times. I've probably also done it plenty of times. Sorry. Welcome to Unfinished Story Support Group. Population, everyone. Next up on the list, a great time to ask more questions is when you're getting to know someone better. Now, this can be a new friend or a date or your significant other or even an old friend. When you're getting to know someone, your job is twofold. Let them learn you, and then you learn them. It can be a lot of fun to answer questions for some people. Sometimes it feels like you're almost being interviewed, which is really enjoyable for some people. Not everybody, but some people really enjoy that. It can make them feel important and interesting. Well, don't forget that the person that you're talking to would probably enjoy feeling that way as well. They want to get known as much as they want to get to know you. When the time comes for you to hear about them, remember to ask questions that will liven up the conversation and that will help get them out of their shell. Even if they don't seem like they're in a shell and you feel like you've already gotten them out of their shell, I promise you, you ain't seen nothing yet until you get past the shell underneath the first shell. So how do you do that? Well, a great place to start out with some natural questions is when you sense that they're passionate about something. And you can always tell when somebody is passionate about something. You may just flat out ask them what they're passionate about. That's a perfectly fine place for you to start. Or you may want to be a little bit more subtle than that. That's fine too. But once they let you open up that door, you're about to meet a really cool version of the person that you're talking to. When they tell you what they're passionate about, or if they didn't say those words out loud, but you noticed a point in the conversation where they lit up a little bit more, that's a good jumping off point. That is the place that you want to start asking questions from. So go from there. If you're talking with someone and they've already answered a few of your questions thus far, hopefully you've been picking up on the clues that they've been laying down for you. Maybe you noticed that they seemed particularly excited when you guys talked about the drums. Well, you better start asking those drum-related questions. What's your favorite band? Are you in a band? Who got you into the drums? What's your favorite kind of music to play? What's the best part of playing drums? Ask some questions about the thing that they enjoy and watch them light up. They'll probably say that drums are a sport more than they are an instrument. Haha. People truly enjoy talking about the things that they're passionate about. So ask them some questions and learn more about what makes them an awesome person. You don't even have to know anything about the topic at all. Let them explain some basics. They can be your guide, and they're going to have a ton of fun while doing it. Let them show you why it's so much fun for them, even if you can't fully grasp how to play a lightning-fast hairta on a double bass drum like Meshuggah does. Here Here are some example questions you can ask when you're getting to know someone better. What do you enjoy most about that? Why is that something that hits you that way? Tell me more about that. What would you change about that? Who brought that to your life? Or any question related to what seems to be a point of interest for the other person. If you ask good questions of the person that you're conversating with, chances are they'll pick up on that and they'll return the favor when it's your turn to talk. That's when things get really cool. They noticed your interest, and now they're ready to give you the spotlight. Here's the microphone, it's your turn. Enjoy it, and enjoy the new depth level of your conversation with them. Alright, so I want to hear from you. What's your favorite topic to answer questions on? Leave a comment down below. Are you a Rubik's Cuber who loves blowing people's minds and answering astonished questions about how they can't even fathom that you can even do that? Or are you a chef that loves to answer questions about spice combos and cooking methods? Or maybe you're a car enthusiast who loves to answer questions about your four-wheeled money pit. Well, let me know about your favorite topic in the comments down below. Next item on the list, a great time to ask more questions is when you're discussing politics. Now I know, some of you just rolled your eyes, but others just lit up. You may hate or love politics, but this point stands either way. Here's your chance to learn more about why this person feels the way they do. People usually believe something because they have a personal story about it, or a strong conviction about it. If you disagree with somebody else's political stance, then instead of rebutting them, try to learn a little bit more about why they feel that way before you deep dive into your own opinions and try to shut them down and prove them wrong. You'll get a lot more out of the conversation by asking more questions. You'll most likely see that they're a fellow human, not just a jerk from the opposing team, but that they have reasons for what they believe, and it's not just random. There's a why. Asking questions also keeps the humanity in the conversation, rather than feeling like two opposing forces who can never see eye to eye. You'll probably also judge them a little bit less once you learn why they believe what they believe, which is a really good and healthy thing. We have to remember that we're all human beings and that we need to keep the lines of communication open, especially over party lines. That's a human being you're speaking with, not a disgusting embodiment of everything you hate about the other side. They might be an embodiment of everything you hate about the other side, but you gotta tone that down a little bit and start asking some questions to understand a little bit more of their humanity and why they think the way they think. Treat it like an open window that you can poke your head inside and gain some insight about that person or issue or the other team, and you'll maybe even get a perspective that you haven't considered yet. Here are some example questions you can ask when discussing politics. What's the main thing that made you lean that way on this issue? What makes this belief so important to you? Do you have someone affected by this in your life? What's something that I might be missing? What's a common misconception about this? What research can I do to understand your view a little bit better? Is there anything that you can concede to someone on the other side of this issue? Now hang on a sec. One thing I do want to say here is that if things start to get toxic or disrespectful or they start to troll you, that's your cue to get the hell out of that conversation. We want to be talking to people that are respectful, open-minded, and understanding. If those criteria are not being met, then save yourself that time and politely exit the conversation. Don't waste your time, don't waste your energy. Next up on the list, a great time to ask more questions is when you're learning something new. You want to make sure that you learn it right, so asking some clarifying questions along the way can make sure that you do that. It'll show that you're engaged in what you're learning, and a good question will show that you're starting to grasp the concept already. Asking more questions is an especially good idea when you need help understanding something. It's best to ask questions early on because you're still pliable and not set in the wrong way of doing something yet. Also, remember that you should ask questions anytime you need help, not just at the beginning. Even if you're years into a job and you think you should know something by now, it's better to ask a question and do it right than to make an attempt to do it wrong and then have to clean it up later. Things get way messier that way, and you can avoid that by just asking a question. You can always cover it by saying, "That's what I thought. I knew I should do it that way, but I was just making sure." That's totally fair to do. Here are some example questions you can ask when learning something new. Am I doing this right? What happens if blank happens? How does that work? Why does it work that way? What's the most important thing I need to know about this? How do I troubleshoot if this happens? If something goes wrong, what's my first move? What are other things that are affected by this? Or any other related question that you need some clarity on. Next up on the list, a great time to ask more questions is when somebody seems a little bit off. Now I know I said don't pry, but sometimes people need you to pry to get through their shell and really help them. Now you have to be extremely careful when doing this, because if you ask too many questions, that may drive them away, and it might make them uncomfortable, and you do not want that because then they shut down. You have to be extremely discerning here. Some people are going to want you to pry, and other people really, really need you not to. So maybe honor that. A good place to start is right here. It might be best to lightly let them know that you notice they seem off. Hey, it seems like you're in a bit of a place lately. If they don't open up to you right away, that's perfectly fine. Maybe they need that time. Ask if it's something that they want to talk about. That's a fair question to ask, but if they say no, at least you asked, and now you can let them know that you're here for them if they need you, and you want them to be healthy, and that you'll do whatever you can to help them if they choose to ask for help. Then, I would just let it be. Now, if a little time goes by and things seem to get worse, it's okay to circle back around and ask another question of them. They may be waiting for you to do that, but they also may not respond well to it. Just let them know that you're concerned and coming from a place of love, and then ask them how you can help them best. Sometimes helping someone the best that you can means just letting them ride it out by themselves. If that's the case, they'll tell you that they need that. I'm sure they'll appreciate you offering to be there for them, even if they don't take you up on the offer. That's their prerogative, it's their choice, just let them be if that's what they ask for. And sometimes people just need you to take their mind off of something, and that will actually help more than help that you think will help. They know what they need. If it's a distraction, help provide a distraction. Go out for dinner, put a movie on, make them laugh, do something else. But if they need a distraction, maybe it might be healthiest to just give it to them for now. That may really help sometimes. I know that's going to drive you crazy as the person that you are, but you kind of just have to let some people do it the way they're going to do it. Here are some example questions you can ask when somebody seems a little bit off. Hey, is everything all right? Anything I can do to help? How can I help you best? Do you need a little bit of space? You know you can come to me if you need to, right? Want to go get some food? Want to watch a movie? Want to not talk about anything and just hang out? Second to last on the list, a great time to ask more questions is when you're in a fight with someone. Now, I put fight in quotation marks there because it might be more helpful to look at it as an intense learning experience. In this intense learning experience situation, maybe you're at odds with someone else, in an intense conversation, holding differing views, or feeling some sort of opposition to each other in that moment. That doesn't necessarily have to be a fight, but hey, I mean, you could be screaming your heads off at each other in full-blown fight mode, and it's still a really good time to start asking more questions. Whatever the case may be, you can learn a lot about your important person by doing this, and you can also learn a lot about the relationship and where to go from here. I hope this helps reframe the word fight a little bit so you can see it more of like a heated discussion or a spicy negotiation or a fully resolvable but still bumpy situation or a learning experience just with some hot sauce on it rather than a fight. Alright, semantics out of the way. When you ask more questions in these spicy negotiations, you can get to the root of something that both of you can do that will start to actually make things better and move things forward. If you spend the whole time outlining your point, your partner spends the whole time outlining their point, and neither of you ever ask how to fix the issue, then you kind of failed. The whole point of things blowing up was to find a way to resolve the cause of the issue, not to state your piece and then call it quits. If you both state your piece and then call it quits there, then neither one of you came up with a workable solution, and you're going to leave that situation with no progress being made. You're both unsatisfied, and you're both still hot. No compromise was reached, no ground was ceded, no negotiation happens. That means that no resolution happened. To avoid that and get back on the right track, just ask at some point what will help, and then actually come up with something that will help, and then actually do that. Sometimes, if a fight ends without a clear game plan or resolution for the future, people can retreat back into themselves and build up more of a wall. That's not what you want. That's where distance starts to build. What you want is to be able to talk about the issue and then come up with a healthy and loving and mutually beneficial game plan that benefits both people, that requires effort from both people. Even if one person in the party seems like they're winning or they have the upper hand or they're totally right about whatever they're complaining about, which is rarely ever the case that somebody's 100% right about something, it's still helpful to figure out what the right person can do to make the relationship better. It's their responsibility to also move things in the right direction. One person is not doing all the work. Both people need to do the work, the wrong person and the right person, and whatever blend of who that is in that moment. It doesn't matter that somebody else might be losing. You are both in the relationship. You both have to elevate. Relationships are give and take. They require compromise, and they take work from both sides no matter what the situation is. So the person that seems more right is going to have to put work in too. It's not helpful to be right, but it is right to be helpful. Let me say that again. It's not helpful to be right, but it is right to be helpful. Here are some example questions that you can ask when you're in a spicy negotiation with someone. What can I do that will truly help us fix things like this? How can I adjust my approach to make things easier for you? What's the main thing that I can work on? What can we both do to move in the right direction? How can I communicate better? How can I read you better? What middle ground can we find on this issue? How can we better understand each other? Real quick, shout out to all my introverts here. This advice works for you too. If you're stuck talking to somebody and you can't exit that conversation gracefully, you can always get them to do most of the talking so you don't have to. That way you get to preserve some of that energy. And then when they start asking questions of you, this is a good place to show them that you're introverted by not diving too deeply. Hopefully they'll get the idea that you're relatively quiet and respect the vibe. If they don't, that just means that you're really interesting to them. Sorry, but you're too cool to be ignored. But you already knew that. I didn't have to tell you that. You just might not like it. it. To sum it all up, asking more questions can lead you to conversation mastery, whether it be on a date, if you're hanging out with an old friend or a new friend, whether you're learning something new or somebody seems a little bit off lately, or if you're in a spicy negotiation with somebody close to you. If you step up your conversation game by using these tips, you'll notice amazing results. Thanks so much for hanging out. Subscribe, like the video, and get a sticker at the link below. And remember, do something that makes the world a better place this week. People need you. Be loving, strong, creative, and free. Be wise, be thankful, and be at peace. Smile and breathe. And just be. See you next time. I'm done. Anybody that likes Meshuggah, though, you got to appreciate what's going on here.